Oh, gee, George. Are you all right? Are you going to try and land? Do you want a fix?
The name's not G. George, it's P. Peter. Peter D. Carter. D's for David. Squadron leader Peter Carter. No, I'm not going to land. Undercarriage is gone. Inner port's on fire. I'm bailing out presently. I'm bailing out. Take a telegram.
Got your message. Received your message. We can hear you.
Telegram to my mother. Mrs.
So this is recording for the podcast. Powell and Pressburger, Matter of Life and Death, from the Crown in Lime Street in Liverpool, with Jeff Young and John Maxwell. So I suppose we're going to begin with whatever Jeff wants to say about it, really.
Lane, London, Northwest.
88 Hampstead Lane, London.
Tell her that I love her. You'll have to write this for me, but what I wanted to know is that I love her very much.
So, Lime Street, the three cinemas that were on Lime Street, the Futurist and the Scarlet and the Forum, which is over the road, they are my childhood, and they're particularly associated with my mum and the kind of Saturday trips to the cinema. So another aspect of Bright Phoenix and the telling of a story set in Lime Street is kind of a homage to my mum, who died 15 years ago. But it's kind of like about her love for the city and her love for the cinema and the magic of all of that. And I'd like to think, it might not be the truth because I've never found out, but I'd like to think that when my mum, who did a lot of her courting with my dad in these three cinemas, I'd like to think that one day, sometime after the war, they went to one of these cinemas and watched The Matter of Life and Death.
You take something like Matter of Life and Death, which is depicted in Bright Phoenix, and the colour palette of The Matter of Life and Death, it's a vibrant colour time capsule, really, isn't it, of a heyday, and Jack Carter's work with Technicolor is still influencing filmmakers today. So is that something that kind of came into your head when you wanted to bring a Matter of Life and Death into Bright Phoenix?
Yeah, it was really, because the colour palette of the film enhances the hallucination. I read somewhere that a description of the film, one of the critics described it as a wartime uncanny. So the colour palette enhances the uncanny nature of the images and of the story. It's a story which in effect is a hallucination. It is David Niven's hallucination. The whole story, really. He's brain damaged, and all of this is going on inside his imagination. And I kind of saw the it's the way I see theatre anyway, is when you go into a theatre and you're in what is ostensibly a black box, that represents the skull. And whatever takes place inside that skull are the workings of the imagination. And I kind of saw that the inside of the derelict cinema was the same. When I went inside the Futurist, when it was derelict, it's black and it's grey and it's shadowy, occasional chinks of light coming through, holes in the roof and that kind of thing. But its palette is kind of monochrome and charcoal, really, and shadow and darkness. And that's a kind of equivalent of in a way, of the theatre space, So I saw it that so much of the play is about memory and longing, and about the imagination, because the children are doing things, like I said, building a Lancaster bomber out of junk. It's a place in which play happens, and part of the imagination of play is where is colour. You know, when we imagine the imagination is akin to hallucination. We're hallucinating visions, and so it's all of that. I don't know enough about what Jack Cardiff was doing in the film, but one of the things that he must have been doing was creating the hallucination that takes place inside David Niven's head, you know. And I think, and through that comes, you know, it's kind of an unreality, isn't it? It's a weird kind of juxtaposition, because so much of the film it's not surreal. It's about a reality that this character is experiencing, but his experience is an unreality. I don't know if that makes sense. And then when we get to heaven, and heaven is black and white, which is juxtaposed with the startling colour palette of the earthbound experiences, you know. I think when I've shown clips of that film to students, it's one of those films that younger people at the moment don't seem to get. Maybe they will when they get a bit older, but I think there is something kind of almost like it's so startling, the colour, isn't it? And bear in mind, I'm saying all this as someone who's chronically colourblind.
Well, I think the colour is startling. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a bit of a shock, isn't it? It's not representing any kind of perception of colour the way that we would see it through our eyes, is it?
No.
It's like
they sort of. I know they use the technical, and I think Scorsese's covered this in documentaries, and speaking about the way Technicolor was used, and Technicolor was actually quite strictly sort of monitored in its main use in America for kind of show films, and Jack Cardiff brought it over here and sort of tore up the rule book, and just they pretty much invented the use of Technicolor and then sold it back to America, much like we, I suppose, took rock and roll over here and then sold it back to America. It's the same kind of idea. We took the technology and then did something with it. So next, I think what we're going to do is we'll take a stroll down Lime Street and just get some impressions down there, and then we'll move towards the big house.
Okay.